Something we hear from people all the time that are looking for an advisor. They schedule time with us from these videos and they ask us, are you a fiduciary? And it's honestly one of my least favorite questions. And I'm going to share why today. I think it's a great question to ask, but I think it's a surface level question. I think there's so much more to it. And so I hope today I can unpack this term fiduciary. And even though it sounds like a great term, and it is, a lot of advisors may not understand exactly what being a fiduciary is, even though they may be able to call themselves a fiduciary. So my hope in today's video is giving you clarity, education, and understanding what is a true fiduciary, in my opinion, that people should look for as they are in or near retirement. And if they are that diligent saver, if they have that 1 to 10 million saved, they have a pension, they're in that 2% club, that's who we're specifically talking about on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So my name is Joe Schmitz. I'm the CEO and founder of Peak Retirement Planning. And again, this is something that I think is a great question. And typically when we hear questions like this from people that are looking to, work with a team of advisors to serve them, it typically means that this is something that matters to them. And that's why we're doing this video. We're not doing this video to make fun of people who ask this question. It's to encourage you to think deeper of what is the best answer to something like that. Because obviously if you ask it, this is something that means something to you. And so here at Peak Retirement, you've probably heard this said before if you've been watching our videos. We try to make everything at a 4th grade level. This is something my mentor taught me when I first got in the business. Is people don't understand financial planning. They don't understand what an RIA is. They don't understand all the credentialing and all the licensing that's needed to become an advisor. And that's what our hope is to simplify it for you through this YouTube channel, especially for that 2% club, Midwestern millionaires we talk about, and to make sure you have the right plan in place as you enter in retirement there. So let me first start off what I'll call maybe a rant here about the word fiduciary, is that I think it's just very watered down. I was at a firm before where I was able to call myself a fiduciary, but I wasn't able to offer all the investments out there. And so I think that's very important. If you're looking for a financial planning team who is that true fiduciary, I would recommend that they're independent. That means they can offer any solution out there. They're not restricted to only offer specific investments that may give that company more revenue. That's something we see that's very prevalent. And so we want you to be aware of that. And you also have to understand the barrier of entry to be a fiduciary. All you have to do is pass what's called a Series 65 exam. And I will tell you, some of it can be difficult, but it's not that hard. It typically takes, advisors maybe 1, 2, 3 months maybe at the most to pass that exam. And again, that's great that it's a bit stringent, and there is some great things about the 65. I'm not here to talk poorly about all of it, but you have to understand it doesn't ask about comprehensive retirement planning. It talks more about investments, rules, and regulations, which that's important. But what about all the other stuff that we need to talk about to have a complete retirement plan? And so that's one of the biggest points I make about this fiduciary is it depends on the level of services they're offering, not only the fact that they can say they're fiduciary when picking investments. And like I said, I was able to call myself a fiduciary, but I only had a limited amount of options to choose from. At that point, I knew I couldn't operate in my client's full best interest. I felt like I had a conflict of interest. And so that's why I decided to go more that independent route. And so something to look for, if you are looking for a true fiduciary is, again, look deeper into what they're doing. Are they only doing investment management, or are they doing comprehensive planning? And this is hard because a lot of advisors will tell you they're doing comprehensive planning, even though they may not be doing it in a deep way. And so a lot of clients, advisors may tell you what you want to hear and not deliver on it. I mean, we've heard before. I mean, it's nightmares to hear what we hear, especially knowing it's clients' life savings. But we've even heard an advisor here say before, hey, tell the client we'll do whatever we can, and then don't do it unless they keep bugging us about it. I mean, like, what are we doing? I mean, again, back to the 4th grade level, people don't understand this stuff. It's our duty, our responsibility as a fiduciary to best deliver. And so, again, you got to understand, too, who is regulating this fiduciary. There is definitely people out there that are ensuring people are doing it the right way. People are getting audited. That's a great thing, but a lot of things can be easily missed or just not looking into deeply enough to see what is really under the hood and going on there. So just something we want to to be ultra aware of. And so something, if you've been watching this video for a while, we talk about is the 5 pillars of retirement planning. And so if you're looking for an advisor, we'd really like to see people who focus on all of those areas. Tax planning is one of the biggest ones. That's something that a lot of advisors, don't do. They may even tell you directly, hey, we aren't tax, experts. You got to go see a CPA. And then they may not even have a CPA at their office. And so you got to go outside and then maybe go to an H&R Block or some CPA locally. And they tell you, hey, I don't do this type of tax planning. I only file returns. And so you're kind of left with a big gap there of what you do. Or maybe your advisor's not coordinate with your estate planning attorney or being able to sit in those meetings with you. And then maybe you're dealt with having to deal with an attorney to decide, is this going to be best for me as well? And so again, back to the idea, we want to see a fiduciary in all manners, all levels of planning. Maybe you need insurance products. Maybe you need some life insurance to cover a gap, or maybe you have life insurance and you may not know if you need coverage anymore or not. And so you need a team to tell you, hey, remove that coverage, or hey, you need additional coverage. Well, you want someone that's going to act in your best interest in that in a way as well, because as we always know, you could work with an insurance only advisor and they may call themselves financial advisors. Understand that if they're only insurance only and you ask them, are you a fiduciary? They're not going to be able to say that they are. That's one of the restrictions of only having your insurance advisor, not having that Series 65 or not having that CFP or other fiduciary designations. And so you have to understand who you're working with. And it's good to ask that question because, again, if you just ask, are you a fiduciary, that will weed out a lot of the 300,000 plus advisors out there. And so that is good news for you. But again, you want to dig deeper to make sure you ultimately get that right team to serve you moving forward. And something else to think about for that insurance only advisor who, can tell you, hey, put all your money in this insurance product. I'll just share my perspective, my experience. For me to get my insurance license at the state of Ohio, it took me 2 weeks to study for it. And I probably could have done it in a lesser amount of time if I could have scheduled it earlier, because it's all pretty simple stuff there. But you're basically saying anyone that can pass that test can call themselves a financial advisor and be able to put all of your life savings into a specific product. And ultimately, I'm sure those people on that side of the aisle will argue, well, it's their decision, it's their life savings. And I get that, that's true. But again, we're expecting someone without the education, without the expertise to make that decision when encouraged and maybe influenced and maybe shown things to encourage that this may be best to do that. And so that's something we have to be aware of as well. And again, I always want to be transparent on this. There is some good things with an insurance only advisor. If you're working with an insurance only advisor who does things the right way, they may be able to have a different perspective than other advisors. And so there is some value in that if they do it every single day. But again, I'd really want to work with a comprehensive team who does insurance planning every day and is able to say and prove that they understand all the other parts of retirement planning as well. So again, personal preference for you, but that's just what I would do. As I always say, if I wasn't in the industry, what would I recommend for my parents? And that's, what I would recommend is someone who's a CFP, someone who does comprehensive planning, can help with insurance planning and get everything done all in one place. And again, back to the idea of asking if someone's a fiduciary or weeding out a lot of people. There's some bigger firms out there that can't say they're directly a fiduciary. And a big reason why is because they can get paid more commissions from offering certain investments or fund families or particular investment names that I'll leave unnamed here. But that's something to be aware of as you're planning, is that that just that simple question is definitely good to ask. I don't want to lessen the idea of asking that question, but again, that's going to weed a lot out. But now you need to weed in the others. And so some people will offer mutual funds that they can get a higher internal expense rate on top of a management fee, or maybe they charge a sales charge and get a commission, and then they could be incentive to move out of that fund family into another investment where you have to pay another sales charge. And that's something that's called churning. That is something that is regulated, and I think they've done a good job at regulating that. But certainly you have to be aware that that's the case, and they can't just freely pick what investments are out there. And so some firms out there, like us, something we do for our clients is we don't get paid more if we offer a mutual fund versus an individual stock. We're going to pick what's best for the client. We're going to be able to tailor it exactly to what their needs are because we're not limited. And that's something a lot of clients can feel comfortable about, knowing the type of planning that they're looking for. And it's one of the reasons I actually started Peak Retirement Planning at such a young age. Is I saw all this planning out there. I saw all these advisors doing all these different things, and I just felt like a lot of it was maybe one, archaic, but also just not done the best way. A lot of times advisors had a ton of clients in a really high client to advisor ratio and just maybe weren't given the exact level of planning and service that was best for the clients, but they were still considered a fiduciary. And so there's just so much more to this game that I really want people to kind of understand. Because if you're not in the industry, if you're not seeing this stuff every day, how do you know? How do you know what's best for you? And so many people are vulnerable, and that's what we really want to make this channel all about, is education, making people know, because one of the biggest fears of people is not knowing what they don't know. And so this is hopefully helpful in helping them go in the right direction there. Another thing that I think is very important when working with a retirement planning team is adequate and transparent fees, right? Making sure that they're not giving you any hidden costs. I always use a doctor or the dentist analogy for me. I went to a dentist one time, and they took all these x-rays, and I remember asking them before they took the x-rays, hey, is this included in the price that I'm paying today, or am I gonna have to pay extra because I just did some x-rays? Like I'm feeling fine, I don't think I need any more. And they go, yep, everything's covered, no worry, we'll just do these x-rays. Well, sure enough, I get a bill for all these x-rays, and again, it's like, what is it? I don't mind paying it if I know what it is, but when I say I don't want to do it and you say it's free and then I have to pay, we're going to have problems. And so again, working with a team is going to be transparent with that and ensure that you are really getting what's best for you, and there's not a bunch of hidden fees that you're not aware of that we just uncovered there. I think it's something very important as well, and that's where just trust, right? How you do anything is how you do everything, and that's something we always want people to be aware of. I mean, when you're working with an advisor, all the small things can make the biggest difference. And we've heard some stories of clients not working with advisors because of just the smallest things. I mean, one time we had a client tell us they were interviewing us and another advisor that they really liked, but the thing that actually turned the corner for them not going with that advisor or not considering them further was the fact that their charger going into their tablet that they had in meetings was just very torn up, and it was just very destroyed. And they were like, well, if he's going to treat his equipment like that, how is he going to treat our life savings like that? And I know that's extreme, but I think that is important. I mean, I remember back, being a college athlete of, everything in the weight room has to be properly aligned and clean, because again, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so, if the weight room's messy, then how can a coach trust you in the fourth quarter to get a defensive stop when, you got to win the game? Everything is going to play a part there. So, maybe just something to consider, what is the advisor's character? How do they treat you when you're with them? How do they treat their team is a big one too. I think those are all things that mean a lot there. And so hopefully this can be a good, quick understanding of the word fiduciary and just give you a broader perspective. And I'd love to see some comments down below of what do you think of the term fiduciary? Do you think that, what I said here today is true? What could you add to what I'm saying here today? Have you seen this in the past of it come true for you from other advisors that you've worked with that, have caused some of these concerns that I've raised today? And just lead to some fun conversation. We always love this community to be active and, be able to know who we're helping and be able to interact with those we're helping. It just makes it more fun. So with that being said, that's all I've got on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.